Hey, this is Stephanie.
And I'm Nina.
And you're listening to Live by the Spirit podcast.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry if I sound like a man.
Steph has dealt with allergies plus a cold
I'm thriving,
this
y'all.
week. But she feels better today.
I am feeling probably the best. But, like, you know when you have, like, I call them the cold jitters when you're just a little shaky?
The cold jitters.
You're just a little shaky. Like, I have not had a fever or anything like that. But, like, I've just been kind of shaky. And that's still my body trying to fight this cold off. And it's just, like, in my head just feels, like, so, I don't know, filled. It's the best way I can put it. That's just how I've been. But
That's funny.
we celebrated your birthday on Sunday.
We did celebrate my birthday on Sunday.
How'd you like it? What did we
It
do?
was good. We had church. Then we went out to lunch. We went to Mexican. Then I was forced into a car with Jude, Steph following,
Mm-hmm.
and we drove into the unknown
Mm-hmm.
to a bookstore. They both bought me books. And then Steph and I went to Franklin, and I bought a plant.
Mm-hmm.
We went thrifting,
You did.
and we went to a vintage store, and I found a sweatshirt that
Ooh, our Anne with an E fans are gonna
yes.
love.
So if you've ever seen the show Anne with an E, basically our favorite character, our fictional boyfriend Gilbert Blythe,
I love
he is going to go to the Sorbonne in Paris. It's a university out there, and we found a sweatshirt that
Like,
says the University of the
talk
Sorbonne
about
on there.
the most perfect thrift find.
It
for
was
you.
awesome, so we bought it.
It's like
I bought it.
It's such a nice inside joke between the two
It's
of us.
so
I can't
funny.
wait for you to wear it, and people be like, "What the heck is that?"
No, I know. I just have to wash it.
Yeah, it'll
And
be so
then-
good.
Then we went back to our friend Genesis, her apartment, and they threw me a little surprise party in her
Mhm.
clubhouse where everybody on planet Earth that I knew was there.
I did.
Not really, but it was
Y'all.
like all of our friends. I had like a inkling, but also like not. Like I was like, I wonder if people will be here.
I say this with love. I think planning that party was what got me sick.
It was just funny.
I have never been well, I've been more stressed, I should say this, but like trying to because like I was just trying to uplift Nina because so many people were going to be out of town. I just felt so like her thinking people weren't going to make time for it, and I was like, girl, we have this big old party planned for you that you have no idea. Just like trust. I kept saying, just trust us, it's going to be so much fun.
Well, and it was more the fact that like
Excuse me.
we all have each other's locations.
Yeah, I had to tell you not to
So
look at
therefore,
location.
We all look at them all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's not like it's weird that
No.
I would look at people's locations. Like we all
Mhm.
look at our locations at least once a day,
Yeah.
see where our friends are at. So our friends Joe, Josiah, and Cameron were out in Memphis playing at a camp,
Mhm.
and they were like doing the music for this church camp, and they said that they were going to this camp, and I naturally assumed, so this was even my own fault.
You did it to yourself.
I really did. It was this, because what had happened was about a month ago when we were celebrating Jude's birthday, I remember having this conversation with Jonah, because I remember we had all these things planned for Jude, and I was like, I want to start thinking about what I want to do for my birthday. It's like a month out, but I feel like I need to be thinking about it. And I called Jonah, and he was with Josiah, and I remember Jonah telling me he was going to St. Louis, which I knew. And then Josiah was like, I never know things in advance, but I know for a fact that day I'm going to be at a camp. Like, I have a gig. And I was like,
Mhm.
with Cam and Joe. And I was like, oh, that means they're not going to be here.
Mhm.
So naturally,
She tells
I
me.
didn't I assumed that they were just going to be out of town all day.
This is why you never assume anything.
But all they had to do was like play in the morning, and then
Yeah.
they left.
I
So
literally, I
they
kept,
were back by like 3:00.
yeah.
And I assumed they were going to be back at like midnight or whatever. They were back at like 3 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And the
They
surprise
were.
party was like at 7:15.
Yeah.
And so like, and Jonah came back, which that ended up being a blessing in and of itself
Mhm.
that he came back early because he ended up getting some sort of flu, like stomach bug type deal.
Mm-hmm.
So if he was driving back later, it probably would have hit him while he was on the road. So it was good that he was back.
Yeah. It's just so
yeah.
funny because
was
Nina calls me and it's like Cameron, Josiah, and Joe are not going to come to or aren't going to be able to come to the party because they're going to be out of town. And I remember saying, I bet you anything they're going to be back Sunday night. Let me just ask and see what time they're going to be back. And Nina was like, no, they're not going to be back. And I was like,
it was mainly because the way Josiah said it, he was like, I know that I have a gig that day.
yeah.
So I naturally put two, like
This is
didn't
why
put
you
two and
do
two together.
never
But then,
assume.
well, this is what got me.
Uh-huh.
It was like Friday or Saturday.
Uh-huh.
I looked at like Cam and Joe's location and I saw where they were was like in the middle of nowhere. I was like, oh, it must be a church camp.
Yeah.
I asked Genesis. I was like, oh, like what gig do they have? She's like, oh, they're playing at a church camp. That's the same gig that Cam and Joe did last year for your birthday, and that's why they weren't in town.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you remember last year,
Yeah.
they weren't in town for my birthday last year. It was the same gig, only this year Josiah went with them.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that day, it was like Saturday. I remember thinking, if they're at a church camp, they're not going to be there all day Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what got me thinking about it then. But I
Yeah.
also was just like, I don't like to have high expectations because then if,
Yeah. I literally
yeah.
literally we had this conversation on like a Sunday or a Monday. I walked up to Cameron on Monday. The next time I saw him, I said, hey, I have a question for you. And he was like, I have an answer for you. I said, I know you're playing a church camp on October 15th. And he was like, how do you know that? I was like, I don't give my sources away. And I was like, well, the thing, and he's like, so what about it? I was like, well, that's Nina's birthday. And he was like, oh, are you kidding? I was like, he's like, oh, well, we'll be back. I was like, what time are we going to be back? Oh, he's like, we'll probably be back like around 3 or 4 o'clock. I was like, okay, perfect. And I was like, and then the idea struck me. It's like, we'll surprise Nina with Joe, Cameron, and Josiah. And then it just became,
A big thing.
let's surprise her with more people. And then it was like, let me make sure she wants a surprise party. I was like, I'm pretty sure she'd be okay with the surprise party, but let me triple check.
You never asked, but it was just funny. Well, it was more funny because when Jude and I were driving to the bookstore, he was like, do you like the fact that you don't know what's going on? I was like, yes and no. I was like, yes, because I appreciate the fact that people want to do things for me, but no, because then in my head, I hype things up, and what if they don't reach that? But I will say you surpassed my expectations. But the funny thing was, I called my mom after church on Sunday and told her, I was like, I don't know what's going on. I just feel like there's all these things that I don't know. Like, I feel like Cam, Joe, and Josiah are going to be there. And my mom and I talked like, I don't remember, Monday or Tuesday. She goes, I've known about the surprise party. I just had to lie to you on the phone.
Yep.
I didn't know about it. I'm like, well, yeah. And then there was the video.
Yeah.
So she got my friends from back in New York to make me a video.
I'm happy you liked that. That was that was a last minute thing on my
It
part,
was funny.
but I'm happy it came together. Thank you to Taylor. She was my girl. I literally
out,
DM'd
Taylor.
her and I was like, hey, I need your help. And she was like, I got you. And she literally sent me all those videos within like a week.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
My favorite was Wesley's. Happy
Nina's
birthday,
brother,
Nina. Go Bills.
Cheers. Well, anyways,
so
I don't
funny.
even know how long we just talked about that, but
Sorry, that was 9 minutes. You won't get back. Sorry, Jude, for going over our 3 to 4 minutes.
it's okay. Here's the thing. I am just happy that you felt loved. And I think as one of your best friends, if not one of your number ones, hopefully, I really wanted to make sure that, because I know how much that meant to you. So we poured into you, and we're going out to dinner tonight with our close people.
I'm excited.
And I'm going to be feeling better for it. But yeah, so I'm just really happy that the day came together. And we had, what was so beautiful is Nina's love language is words of affirmation. So we did what we always did, was words of affirmation. And I literally told everyone, I was like, even if that's just the whole party is us giving words of affirmation, that's what she needs. So I don't want to rush it. And then it turned into a big prayer circle, which I think is so beautiful.
We prayed for 37 minutes.
I know.
It's on my phone.
I want that for my birthday now.
The audio is all on my phone.
It's
We
so
recorded the whole prayer. And yeah, so I have the whole 37 minutes of people praying over me on my phone. And also, I think what topped it all was the letters. I will say.
Yeah.
I am a big words of affirmation person, but I like to be able to, like, once you do words of affirmations, you can kind of remember what people said, but you don't always remember it all. And so I like to be able to have letters that I can look back on. Like, I have letters saved through several different seasons of my life. And I'm going to keep all of these letters as well. But it was super funny reading some of them, like Joe and Josiah's are just hilarious. And then like others just very encouraging, and just being able to, even like Georgie and Donovan and Jason and Brittany. So Georgie and Donovan are our young adult leaders, and Jason and Brittany are assistant pastors at church. And they were there for the beginning, but they weren't able to stay because they all have kids. And so when they left, it was, sad that they couldn't stay, but they all gave me letters. And so it's like nice to have those too, because they weren't there to, do the affirmations. But yeah, it's just nice to know that people care enough to like want to write letters. Like Josiah wrote in his letter, I don't write letters. Yeah. But it's your birthday, so I'm going to. Well, I was like, thank you.
It's so funny because I think I'm actually the polar opposite, because I'm my love language is quality time, and I'm so sorry we're so off topic. We'll get back there in a second. But like for me on my birthday, I remember coming into the movie night and I asked Georgie, I was like, "Are we gonna do affirmations?" She's like, "Well, we wrote you letters." And I'm like, I appreciate that, but I really would like to hear words from people. And she was like, okay, yeah, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
So.
I remember I wrote you a letter. I'm much better with my words when I can think about them and write them down rather than like speaking them at people. Like if I don't have, so like what I did for like you and for like Jude for their birthdays, I wrote them letters more in depth about like my gratitude towards them and affirmation towards them, because when we give affirmations, I am not as great on the spot with spoken word, but I'm better at writing. So, yeah.
Alrighty, we're finally on topic.
Okay.
How long did it take us?
12 minutes and 17 seconds.
Okay. So sorry, Jude.
So, sorry, Jude. So this week we are talking about another lie from the enemy, and this is kind of going off something that I said last week.
I have the quote. Oh, wait.
I wrote,
you said, just because he is a Christian doesn't mean he's the one.
I said just because he's a Christian doesn't mean you should date.
Oh,
but either way, that's the same thing.
Powerful statement.
Even going like, that was just one of the things that I have learned in my 24 years of existence is, yes, we should strive to want a Christian man, but there's a big difference between Christian boys and Christian men. And there's, just because somebody is a Christian doesn't mean that he's the right person for you. And doesn't mean that he's the one that you should go after. And so we're gonna dive into what that looks like. And
for you boys listening, like we're not we're not trying to target you, like hurt your feelings or anything like that. I think honestly there'll probably be some takeaways that you can take into when you're looking for your wife, or this is just, obviously we are two females.
Yes.
And we have had very similar dating histories in the past. We've also had very polar opposite dating histories in the past, which is so interesting.
Yes.
So we're just talking from our experiences with dealing with you.
With you.
It's all your fault. And we got into it a little bit last week, so I won't rehash that. But yeah.
Last night it was such a joke. What did I even say?
I keep coughing.
Last night, where everybody was like, well, you just hate men. Was that last night?
That might have been Monday. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was something in the last week where people were like, Nina, well, you just hate guys. And I was like, you know what? I think it was Thursday. I don't know. Someday this week, it was just like I had made a comment to Jonah or something. And he said something about, well, you just hate men. I'm like, I don't hate men. Like, it's just.
We don't hate men, we hate boys.
We don't hate anybody, but it's hard for us to not have a negative outlook when it comes to things like this because of history in the past, but also knowing that God is redeeming that, and he will redeem that when we, meet our husbands and everything.
I think my biggest takeaway that I've really been in prayer with God, and again, I got confirmation through someone else's testimony, Maddie Pruitt, who is amazing. We've talked about her before. Go follow her. She's awesome. But I've been praying to the Lord, because every time I've gone out with guys in the past, there's always been so much anxiety built around it, where I get really anxious, or I'll have a panic attack, or, you know, before, after, even sometimes during the date. And obviously, if the Lord's not going to give you the Lord, that's not God. Sorry, my head's all jumbled up. That's not God. And so I've been praying, I'm like, Lord, when I meet my husband, I want your peace that surpasses all understanding from beginning to end. And I heard Maddie Pruitt say in an interview recently about her the book she was writing, she's like, I knew he was different because I had such peace from beginning to end.
Yeah.
From the moment he started talking to me, to our first date, to our second date, never once did I have anxiety. I had such peace. That's how I knew that this was my husband. And I was like, Lord, that just gave me some confirmation that that's what you'll be gracing me with in the future. That's what you'll be gracing Nina with in the future. And it's so beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that
I'm so sorry.
I know that we have both talked about this, but we believe that we should be pursued as women of Christ. We believe that.
Me.
Come find me. Is that what you just said? And I think that it can be very discouraging, because I do believe that there are instances in which that, you know, we would need to make a comment or have a conversation. And maybe one time, like, we have a friend who that was her story in her relationship, and, you know, maybe one time we can have her talk about this, but like, I want to be pursued by someone. And if it came down to that, that's obviously a different situation. But I believe that, you know, like you were saying, it shouldn't be confusing. It shouldn't be, you know, making you anxious. Yes, you should be like nervous, excited and stuff like that.
Like the good
But, like,
butterflies.
you should not be sitting there wondering, like, does he like me? Why does he talk to other people like this? Like, you should not have those doubts. And I think that that's like one thing that I've dealt with in the past is like, well, does he like me? But because in reality, if he does, he needs to be straight up clear with you, talking to you about that. And that's one thing that I know both of us pray for, is to have somebody come and speak those things to us rather than just us interpreting things. Because it's so easy to interpret every little thing that a guy will do.
Yeah.
But I want that verbal confirmation.
We've given some advice to some of our male friends recently about how just honesty is the best policy.
Yeah.
Just being upfront with a girl from the get-go is the best thing. If you see a girl and you're like, I think she's pretty, I want to get to know her more, but I honestly don't know if I want to get to know her more as a friend or possibly to date her, tell her that. I know
you need to be straight up.
I know it sounds a little scary and a little confusing. She's gonna have so much more respect for you. If I had a guy come up to me and say, hey, I think you're really pretty, I'd love to get coffee with you to see, you know where this could go, that type of thing, I would be like, okay, so I know the intentions of the date, and then, or the coffee, whatever.
Yeah. And you know the intentions. Is it like just as a friend, or is it as a date, or is it something that you don't know yet and you want to see what that is? And
then it's after the fact. It's if he thinks like, wow, we had such great discussion, but I really feel like we're going to be friends, then it's like, tell me that right away. Don't let us go out on more coffee dates and get me all confused and have me thinking this is going one way
right now.
You can't tell this has happened to me before.
Oh man.
Just if you just, honesty is always the best policy. And then if you see a girl that you think that might have a crush on you or like you, and you don't feel the same way about her, you need to give her verbal confirmation that you don't like her, because I can speak for myself. When I've liked a guy in the past and I've had a crush on a guy in the past, I cannot get over him until I get that verbal confirmation from him that he does not like me, and then I'm able to move on. It's like a freedom with it. And I think that's such a great trait, is having, that's something that I want in my future husband, is someone who's going to be honest with me and upfront with me, and just going to tell it to me how it is, rip the Band-Aid off, obviously do it all with love. But I think that is such a big, amazing trait that I want. And I think the 1 Corinthians 16 verses 13 through 14 go off really well with that. It says, be alert, stand firm in faith, be courageous, be strong, do everything in love.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm so sorry for this coughing, y'all.
Well, since you have a mic that allows you to get up,
Oh gosh.
can you go grab my sweatshirt in your dining room while I read my
Yeah.
Bible verse?
Yeah.
Because it's going to take me a hot sick.
I'll be back.
All right. While Steph goes to grab my sweatshirt that is on the chair in her dining room, I'm going to read you another thing that this is one thing that this is a Bible verse. Well, it's passage really, that in my Bible, it's called Marks of the True Christian. I know other people's Bibles, it's called the Christian Handbook, but all of these things are things that we are called to in our walk with the Lord. And I believe that this is something that you should be looking for in other people, in your friends, in, a future spouse or whatever. It says, so it's Romans 12:9-21. Oh, Steph set my sweatshirt down and it sent my Bible pages flying. Sorry that I made that noise into the mic. All right. It says, let love be genuine, arbor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection, outdo one another in showing honor. Do not be slothful in zeal, be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Never be wise in your own sight. Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Behold, never avenge yourself, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink, for by doing so you will heap burning coals onto his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
So good.
Yeah.
We
So-
read that during our community episode too.
Yeah, and those are all things that we need to. I forgot that I did. Sorry if I just repeated that to all
No,
who
you're
have
good.
heard it before, but
Hey, it's a good verse.
yeah, and those are all
Verses.
things that we should be sticking to ourselves. These are things that we should be exhibiting, but these are also things that we need to be looking for
Mhm.
when looking for, a spouse. And yeah,
Yeah, what was those verses again?
that was Romans 12:9-21.
Yeah, I also really like verse 2. It talks about like do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by renewing your mind. I think that's something else that I've been praying over my husband for, that he is a godly man first and foremost, and puts God number one in his life, and does that in everything that he does, every action that he does, everything that he says. That's all God first, and he doesn't conform to worldly things. And that's something that I'm trying to strive to be more like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want, and I said this a few weeks ago when we talked about Proverbs, like being a Proverbs 31 woman, but like I don't want to be known for like, oh, that girl is so worldly. I want to be known for that girl has Jesus in her heart, and I want that same thing for whoever I'm with. And just think how awesome that's going to be, us walking down the street hand in hand, just being pure lights of God together. Like it's crazy to me what like the shift I've had over the last few years of my life of exactly what I want in a relationship. And that's why I'm so thankful I've been single for so long, is because I know now what I want and what's going to be so amazing and so good. And it's going to be being one with someone who has such a heart for God and strives for that, not just for himself, but for me as well. Like, and I can't wait to raise kids in that too. It's so beautiful to see our friends in relationships like that too, watching our friends have Bible studies with their boyfriends or fiancés or husbands, or just really diving into the word together. I think it's such a beautiful thing, and it's such a beautiful promise that the Lord has graced us with, and I'm very excited for the season whenever it comes, Lord.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so when it comes to Christian men, like we were saying before,
Mhm.
just because they are Christian doesn't mean that they, you know,
You should
you should date them. I think that we've both experienced firsthand that there's, like I said at the beginning, there's a very big difference between a Christian boy and a Christian man. You know, a Christian man is somebody that's going to exhibit all these qualities, but there's also, you know, we all sin, we all fall short.
No
Then
one's
there's-
perfect but Jesus.
Exactly.
Hannah Montana says it best.
I wouldn't say she says
Nobody's
it
perfect.
best, but she
I
does
want-
say that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well,
Let's move
and
on.
we've talked about this, and I've mentioned 40,000 times this one verse, 2 Corinthians 7:1 talks about how we need to perfect holiness out of reverence for God. So it's like continuing to, you know, step closer and closer to righteousness every day, because we're never going to be perfect, but we should
Mhm.
attempt our very best to get as close to that
Yeah.
as possible. And I think that the difference between a man and a boy when it comes to Christians is like, you'll notice it in their character when they, you know, I think that a Christian boy will talk to multiple girls at one time or like
Yeah.
lead you on, but like also be cognizant of what they're doing. I think
There-
there's a difference. Sometimes guys can lead you on, but that's
It
entirely on the
sucks
girls.
because
That-
they're
but I
good
think that-
guys too
but
that do
I-
it.
I don't think that it's always them being cognizant of it. I think sometimes guys don't understand.
You boys aren't necessarily aware of what you're
Well,
doing.
and I think
sometimes.
that's honestly sometimes fully our fault too.
Yeah.
Because we can very easily seek, you know, confirmation with the guy or, you know, seek clarity. But when you're cognizant of it and you're leading girls on, maybe dive into some prayer and into the word and see what God really has to say about that. But yeah, don't be playing games, y'all.
Yeah. And I think also like I think, you know, as we're adults here, it's okay to go out on multiple dates
Yeah.
with different girls cuz you don't know who your wife is. I think that's okay. I think the problem comes from when you are leading multiple girls on and how you're feeling. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, I went out with this one girl on this day and then another girl, and then you just honestly keep doing it, and so you're getting, but you don't let the girls know that you're going out. I don't know. I'm trying to like find a way to make it sound where he's not. It's so hard because I had a conversation with my dad about this recently, and he said when he was our age, they didn't have phones. And so the only way they got to know each other was going out on dates. And so he'd
Yeah.
go out on multiple dates with girls, with like different girls to figure out, you know, who his wife was. And like, but in today's standards, that's a player. That is a player, which sucks because my dad is the most wholesome person I know.
It's also a lot different now, and we have a lot more accessibility to be able to, you know, get to know each other without
Yeah.
having to literally spend one-on-one time together. Like, obviously, within our community, we spend a lot of time together, and so we're able to get to know everybody a lot easier, I feel like. But also, sometimes it is hard to get to know specific people, and, you know, sometimes you have to foster that. But
Yeah.
also, being able to text, or we all voice message a lot,
Mhm.
or being able to, you know, have phone conversations, things like that, where you don't have to spend that physical one-on-one time together.
Yeah.
Because I think that
There's still some goodness in that.
that can have some blurred lines there, but also just making sure that you're just being very clear about your intentions and where you're at. There's nothing more frustrating than being in a situation where you think that someone's flirting with you, but then you also know that they're not, but their actions are speaking differently. Like, there's nothing worse than that, and I think we've both been there. So it's just making sure that you're being really super clear with, you know, us.
Yeah, for sure.
And our friend Genesis, she has a podcast with her friend Kirsten called the Whatever Podcast, and she did an episode maybe a month ago now, I don't know, a few weeks ago, with Jude Smith, who y'all know because he was on our episodes like twice. And one of the things that Genesis had said is, you know, for girls, when we like a guy, we go through in our head all the stages of that relationship. Do you do that? Do you think about like, oh, if we were dating, it could look like this. Oh, if we were
Yep.
married, it could look like this. Because if you
Sadly.
can't picture it,
I said
then you're not,
sadly.
if you're not going to entertain the thought.
Yeah, I think, yeah, well, I said sadly. That's not what I meant. I think sometimes I'll start to like a guy and then I'll start like thinking of all that stuff and like, then I'm like, crap, am I thinking about this too soon? You know what I mean? And
yeah.
then I'm like, again, like what you just said, what Jen said, if you can't picture a future with them, then you shouldn't be in it.
Yeah.
So I don't think necessarily that's a bad thing.
Mm-mm. But we as girls do that.
We
I don't
do.
think guys do that at all. I really don't think majority of guys do
Yeah.
that. So like we have already thought about all of that. And if we can't think of a future with that guy, we're not going to be pursuing that
Mhm.
idea. But if we can, which oftentimes does happen,
That happens a lot.
we're like, ooh.
Ooh. Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to think of it. Yeah. I think also just again, when you are in your 20s, it's so again, back in like I don't know, 50, 60 years ago, we would probably be married by this point of life. It's just like
Mhm.
life is so different, and I think it's okay that that we're in our 20s and we're trying to figure out who we are before we get into a relationship. And I think obviously a lot of that is God guiding us to the right people to meet and things like that. But I think it's just so important for you boys to know, like, how careful you need to be with girls' hearts, because I think sometimes you think that, well, and again, girls can do this with guys too, but I think it's just sometimes you need to be aware that's like, oh, she might like me more than I like her, and what am I gonna do about it? And I've had so many guy friends come to me and say, like, I don't know what to do. I feel like she likes me more than I like her. I'm kind of getting out of interest. I was like, well, when did you start feeling this? Well, 2 weeks ago. Why didn't you tell her this 2 weeks ago? I was like, I don't know. I just like, I don't want to bring it up. I don't want to have like that conversation. I'm like, but guess what? She's had 2 more weeks to start to like you more. She's had 2 more weeks to fall for you more. You've dragged her on for 2 more weeks. Whoopsie.
I just Googled
Yeah.
the average marriage age in 1960 for men was 22 and women was 20. Today, the average marriage age for men is 29 and 27 for women.
So I still got 2 years. No, I got a year. Probably all closer to a year.
You got like a year and a bit. But it's like, that's the average now,
That's crazy.
which is crazy. Wait, sorry. Hold on. That was in 2018. That was the average marriage age.
Yeah.
I know now the average marriage age is closer to 30, but it's crazy to think that like if we were born in like the 50s,
We'd be married.
by 1960 we'd be married.
Yeah.
Sorry, if we were born in the 40s. Did I say that?
You said 50s.
If we were born in 1940, by 1960 we would be married. So
Yeah.
at 20.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also it's like all of us as Christians, we need to set aside time with the Lord and figure out what we want ourselves. What do I want? What does the Lord want for me?
Yes.
And that's why I think writing your list down is so helpful. I wrote a list down in 2016. Now, there are several things I will change from my list.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, I think I'd go more in depth of my connection with God and different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's knowing exactly what you want. And then when you're having a conversation with somebody and you're trying to figure out if you want to date them or see a future with them, if they don't hit every single thing, then they're not who God called you to be with. And again, it's having that peace that surpasses all understanding. And I think my prayer over the boys and Christian men in our life is that they are getting that discernment from God now. They know how precious women are and how women should be treated. And I think it's great that we have guy friends who come to us who want advice, who
Mhm.
seek that because they don't want to hurt
Mm-hmm.
people or hurt girls. And so it's just really, just guiding them into being the best Christian men that they can be.
One thing I will say is like when you're making a list, you need to be really prayerful about it, Because if you're just writing things down, that's different. Like, you can't just write things down to write them down. I think you need to be really prayerful about what you're writing down in your list and be prayerful of, like, asking God what he wants for you. But I was telling this to our friend Genesis last week. Her boyfriend, Joe, is one of the most godly men I know. And I have seen their relationship, you know, since they started dating. And I know you've seen it before that because you've been around longer than I have. But seeing their relationship after relationships she's been in the past, I was, you know, saying to her, it's been so nice to have an example of, like, the way he pursues you and the way he loves you selflessly. Like, if he loved her selfishly, they probably wouldn't be together. And, you know, like, because if loving people like Christ loves, that's loving sacrificially. And he does that with her and her for him. And so it's beautiful to see that. So I think it's so beautiful that we get to see that example from start to finish.
Yeah.
Like, because obviously we have so many incredible married couples in our circle that we can look to. And I think it's also really beautiful that we have so many Christian single men in our group. And I'm excited to see, you know, when they get into relationships, being able to see their relationships and how they pursue as well. I think it's really great that we get that, you know, that like you said, how they can come to us and how we could go to them. And I think that's such a beautiful relationship that we have with them.
Yeah, no, it's such a beautiful example. I think it's a beautiful example for the guys in Joe's life too, because he's showing them how a godly man should be.
Yeah.
It's not just like us saying, wow, this relationship is beautiful. I think we see that in so many levels. We see that from so many other different relationships. I'm sure Joe has people that he looks up to and vice versa. But yeah. And so I think it's just all about, first and foremost, just really making sure that you are connected with our Lord, making sure that relationship is number one before you go into anything else. And I can speak for myself. Believe me, it is nice to get confirmation of different things from somebody in person. It feels good when I've dated guys in the past and they've told me that I'm pretty and you know, treated me nice and all these things. But I would much rather make sure that my relationship is good with God and that relationship is solid first than, I don't know, end up with someone who isn't all for it. I'm just how I am with the Lord now. I would rather be single than dealing with someone that I feel like would be pulling me down.
I think the number one thing I want to be known for by a guy, like the one thing I want them to see is obviously my heart for the Lord. And that is like the number one thing that I want that person to love me for.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be something that's, how do I say that? Like, I don't want it to just be outward appearance or whatever. Like, I want it to be my heart.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what it should look like. I think that's what, you know, all these other things, yes, are important. You know, your emotional state, your physical, but like your spiritual like faith, that should be the number one thing that you're looking for. And that should be the number one thing that a guy is looking for when pursuing you.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And please do not use the excuse, I'm in a season of singleness.
If you are, that's fine.
That's fine.
But if you just don't have an interest, you need to you need to say that, because then we could hold out hope that maybe when they're done with their singleness, then they'll like me.
I just feel like it's so overused nowadays. Yeah. I was telling my dad this. I told my dad that the other day, that I had a friend call me about a guy she was interested in, saying, she's like, he's told me he's in a season of singleness. And my dad was like, that's he's like coming from a man. I said that to a lot of girls doesn't mean that I meant it.
Yeah. Like,
and it even was true back then too, which I think is so funny, but
yeah, it needs to be genuine if you're going to say that.
Yeah, because then it's like, what, bro? Come on.
Because if you're not interested, you need to just make that known.
Yes.
Yes, it might sting a little, but it is far better to know that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think also it's like, there are some of you guys out there, like, we make comments that you're hot commodity.
Mm-hmm.
if you know that, like, there's some guys who are like, why me? And like have that, like, why I don't understand why I'm hot commodity. That is the guy that I will be attracted to. It's the ones that's like, oh, I'm hot commodity, really? And like almost like puff up their chest and like walk with that. Those are the, I'm sorry, y'all. Like,
That's being prideful.
that's being so prideful. Like, stop. Like, that takes away everything that we just told you that you were. And it's like, a lot of times if I say you're hot commodity right now, that means because you are a single Christian, good looking Christian guy that I know a lot of girls like, or anything like that. And for one, I don't know if I'd ever say that to one of our like any of our guy friends that quote unquote were hot commodity. But if they were to find out, that to me would say a lot about them as a person. It's like, oh, I am that type of it's like literally how they say it, like saying I am, why? Or it's like I am, like, so so that's just something else I've kind of noticed through some of our friends, through some of you know, mutual friends, through the grapevine and stuff like that is so just watch out for that. Just watch out for sometimes your pride getting in the way too. I think guys have, well, I don't know, I was supposed to say I think guys have more issues with pride than girls, but I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true. I think the pride, I am very prideful. I know that. That's something I'm working on because it's hard for me to admit when I'm wrong. But that's like a pride thing. I don't think I'm prideful in a sense of like that respect.
Yeah.
But like I know my pride lies in certain areas. But I think everybody deals with pride just the same. I think pride is one of the number one things that the enemy keeps us down with.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
It might not be like you're prideful because girls like you. It could be you're prideful like me when you're admitting that you're wrong. Because there's something that feels so wrong about that.
Oh, believe me.
It's like, but I think that pride is definitely deeply rooted in majority of the sins that we commit. You know, that's a hot take, but
yeah.
Anyways.
Do you have anything else?
I don't think so.
Yeah. My brain's kind of scrambled eggs right now from being sick. I wish I had a little more insightful thought. But
yeah.
Hopefully you stuck around with us long enough for all this.
Yeah. Sorry if none of that made any sense. I
okay.
feel like we made points.
I do. You know what? It's good.
It's going on Spotify anyways.
Yeah. I will say we'll have a way more structured episode next week. I'm excited for next week's episode. We're already starting to talk about it.
Yes. I'm interested to see the feedback on that.
Me too, if I'm being completely honest.
This is so cool. So the other day, I got an email saying that somebody commented on our Spotify like podcast.
Ooh.
My mother.
Lee's my
Shout
favorite.
out to my mother.
I love her mom.
The last 2 episodes we have put out, she has specifically commented on them, which I didn't know you could comment on Spotify. Like I knew you could review it, but my mom was like, "Love this."
I guess leave us a comment so we
leave
us
a comment on
comments.
Spotify. Unless it's rude, then please don't make a comment.
Yeah.
But if it's anything positive, please let us know.
Yeah. We will cry if you say something mean.
We will cry. It was really funny. I wonder if I could find it super quick. Oh yeah, this is 2 fans have responded to your Q&A. And I clicked on it, and it said, on the 24 things learned in 24 years, so my last one, my mom commented, "Good job, I liked it." And then on our top picks for uplifting TV shows, my mom said, 3 thumbs up.
Oh, we love Elise.
3
We're also
thumbs up
getting
emojis.
some views on YouTube, which I think is awesome. So
Yes.
wherever you're listening, we are so thankful for you. We've been praying over you. I literally have you guys up on my prayer wall right now. Oh, my Alexa just went off. But anyways, we're going to come back with a way better structured episode next week when I'm not ill.
Yes. And it's going to be a really good topic, so buckle in.
Buckle in.
And if you ever have any ideas of what you guys want us to talk about, or things like topics that you guys are interested in us covering, please let us know. We have an Instagram that you can DM. Steph manages our Instagram and makes some wonderful reels on there.
Thank you. I try.
And also,
what?
I was going to say, we have something you're going to want to be following our Instagram.
Oh,
because
yeah.
we have something coming up soon.
More stuff coming up soon. I'm working on
possibly
some
some things that you could achieve. You know.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So keep an eye out on our Instagram at Live by the Spirit Podcast. You can follow Steph at Stephanie Graydon. You can follow me at Nina Trank on Instagram, only because I don't do other social medias. But you can follow us both on Instagram and follow our podcast on Instagram. Make sure you guys give us a follow on on Spotify and give us a rate and leave us a comment. I feel like I'm a YouTuber.
I know.
Hit the like and the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications.
Oh gosh. All right.
But you can do that on our YouTube.
We'll see you next week, y'all.
Peace and blessings.
Bye.